Welcome to SarderTV. I'm Vaishali Jain. Today we have Regis Courtemanche joining us. Regis is the Director of Learning and Talent Development at BuzzFeed, the social news and entertainment company. The company recently raised $200 million in funding from NBC Universal, has 200 million visitors to its site every month, and says it's redefining online advertising with its social, content-driven publishing technology. Regis is here to tell us more. Regis, thanks so much for joining us today.
Sure, very welcome. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your role as Director of Learning and Talent Development at BuzzFeed.
Sure, so me and my team are responsible for all new hire onboarding, professional development, and leadership development. And as we've grown over the last 3 years, the needs have changed, but those three buckets have stayed consistent.
Tell us a little bit about BuzzFeed. Tell us about how it's different than some of the other media companies and online media companies out there.
It's a really interesting place to work because everybody's immersed in the internet. You know, we get 75% of our traffic from social referrals. So instead of trying to get people to click on links to come to our site, like the old portal model, it's all about friends sharing with each other, families sharing with other family members, word of mouth marketing, and that's true for our branded content as well. And everybody at the company is immersed in that social culture, and we even have community posts that not even if you're not on the editorial team, you can create posts. And I've written a few as well. They're not that successful, but everybody really buys into that.
The company started in 2006 with virtually no employees.
True.
And today you have 1,400 employees worldwide. Tell us how you've built and maintained a learning culture in such rapid growth.
Sure, so I can't take all the credit. I think that learning is in the DNA at BuzzFeed, from our CEO all the way down to the individual teams. We're constantly experimenting and trying new things. And I think that as long as we're staying true to that learning DNA, it's really helped our team as a byproduct of that, because I've never worked anywhere as rewarding, because people come to these sessions engaged and ready to learn.
You've been at the company for about 3 years now. Prior to this, you were at other online media companies, AOL and Yahoo and Estee Lauder as well. What would you say are some of the biggest differences in the way more established companies approach learning versus the way newer online media companies do?
When you work at a bigger company, you have more resources, but there's also a lot more chefs in the kitchen. So it's a little bit harder to get things done and try new things. Something that I pride myself on in our team is piloting. We pilot everything, and we always say that life is in beta, you know, and we try lots of different approaches to see what really sticks with the organization. And we try to speak in the language of our employees versus dictating what that language should be. There's really no jargon at BuzzFeed, like boil the ocean and other things like that. It's very authentic.
What would you say are some of the most unique aspects of your learning and development programs at the company?
We have over 90% of our content is designed and delivered by us. So in the past, we've relied, in my previous experiences, we relied heavily on vendors and other training partners to come in and create content and even facilitate it and measure it. We have Jacks and Jills of all trades on our team, and we design everything. We do needs analysis ourselves, and we facilitate and do all the measurement ourselves as well. So I think that's really unique, and it really shows in the genuineness of the programs that we offer.
What kind of benefits have you seen based on the fact that you've done a lot of it in-house?
Yeah, more people show up to our sessions than sign up for our sessions, which is completely the opposite of anything else I've experienced, where you account for natural attrition. And because I think we make it so engaging and speak like real people, we actually disconnect to connect very often. We live in a very technological world, and we break people out of that technological haze to just have real conversations, and I think that works really well.
What changes have you incorporated into some of your learning and development programs since you've been at its head?
Yeah, so we started with nothing. It was a blank canvas at the time, and over our growth period from about 100 employees when I joined to 1,400 now, being able to scale has been a challenge for us. And so having more virtual sessions and traveling more and making more content be available on demand has been really important for us.
What are some of your biggest focus areas when it comes to learning and development?
Essentially, our managers are generally younger or newer to managing, and I think that supporting them and giving them the tools that they need, giving them the essentials in terms of giving and receiving feedback, delegating, time management, handling resistance, having tough conversations, arming them with those tools has a trickle-down effect to the whole organization. And we see that the groups that really lean into those programs that we offer have higher engagement and better retention.
You have specific leadership development programs, new hire onboarding programs, professional development programs. Can you tell us a little bit about those, starting with your leadership development programs? What are some of the things that you focus on?
Yeah, so with leadership development, we have a great program called The Big Shift, which discusses the differences from being an individual contributor to a manager. It's a very different job. Very often people get promoted into management and they think, oh, I was great at what I was doing before, this is going to make me a great manager. That's not always true. So we have real conversations about that, and we do a lot of role playing, and it's very engaging, and then we reconnect 30 days later for that session. We also do other things like BFF to boss, which is buddy to boss, but again, BFF for just BuzzFeed language. And we do time management and a lot of other communication tools as well, like HBDI for our management team. And then StrengthsFinder. We believe in a strengths-based organization. Very often, growing up, you are only focused on the elements of your experience that aren't working so well. We focus on the things about you that are unique and are your strengths.
And what about your new hire onboarding process? Start off by telling us some of the traits that you look for and characteristics that you look for when you're hiring new people.
Yeah, it's really, people are excited to join a new company, so we get them hooked early with our new hire boot camp that we have them do. It's a 2-day immersive boot camp where they hear from all the leaders, and then after that we support them as well with a buddy program. We have lunch roulette where people get to continue that new hire community. In terms of hiring, I always say that you can coach skills, but you can't coach character. It's one of those things where the technical attributes of somebody's experience are pretty easy to vet, but is this person easy to work with? Are they flexible? Are they okay with a little bit of chaos? Because that's life at BuzzFeed, and just being honest with them about that. Those are the things that we look for as well.
And what about professional development generally? What are some of the things that you focus on there?
Yeah, we want people, no matter whether they stay at BuzzFeed for a long time or a short time, hopefully a long time, to really look back and say, I got so much better at what I do because I worked at BuzzFeed. And the things that we focus on, time management, presentation skills, it's really case by case. We sometimes bring in guest lecturers and speakers, but again, going back to constant communication and collaboration, those are the things that we think about a lot.
Every organization is going to face challenges when it comes to developing, implementing learning programs, especially at an organization like BuzzFeed that is growing so rapidly. What would you say are some of the major challenges that you're facing when it comes to implementing some of your programs?
Certainly scale and accountability. As we've grown, our team hasn't really grown as proportionately. So how do we get in front of people that are in Germany and Australia and doing a lot more virtual sessions? And then accountability. How do we hold managers accountable to learning? How do we hold teams accountable to learning? And not necessarily accountability, but reinforcement along the way versus one and done training.
Are you working with various managers within the organization to sort of build your learning programs? How do you go ahead and build those?
Yeah, so we work with senior leadership, of course. We need senior leadership buy-in for everything. But to be honest with you, we do everything from the ground up. And we assess the needs of the organization based on the conversations that we have. My team is rarely at our desks. We're out sitting with the teams that we support and finding out what are their real challenges, what's going on, and that's the stuff we create our programs out of, not necessarily an archetype.
How does measurement play into this? How are you looking at measuring success of your learning programs and whether learning outcomes are being met?
Sure, so it's qualitative and quantitative. We measure what we can with numbers. We have 100% retention of anybody that's gone through our coaching program over the last year, which is really exciting. And then the anecdotal feedback is really what gets me out of bed. When somebody tells me that they stayed at BuzzFeed or this is one of the best perks at BuzzFeed, that's really rewarding for me and my team. I think a lot of it, you could see a marked difference in the teams that go to our programs. And so we don't do a lot of required training. We do a lot of electives because we believe that to motivate somebody to learn is kind of a battle that's very hard to fight. So I would much rather work with people that want to be there. And the teams that are opting in to our programs are really much more engaged. Attrition is much lower.
What kinds of learning technologies do you think are going to be disruptors in the learning industry?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. And interestingly, and maybe ironically, I think the tools that help us communicate and collaborate better as humans. The better we get at technology, the worse I think we get at having conversations with each other. And so anything that promotes that, so whether it's like coaching on demand or content on demand or mentoring on demand, things that can help people break that technological haze that they're in.
Are those some of the methods that you're employing at BuzzFeed as well?
Sure, we're piloting several of them now, but we use Slack and even email informally. It's this lost art. How do you write a good email? And we create a lot of resources for people. We fish where the fish are. So if people are on email, we send them emails that are very useful, very short, concise. That's really important to us. And then in Slack and some other forums that we have, we provide a lot of resources for people based on the departments that they're in. Try to tailor the message specifically.
Any other learning technologies that you're employing at BuzzFeed? Some of the newer, more innovative things that are out there?
Yeah, so we piloted a neuroscience-based headset that helps increase focus in a hectic environment. They actually use it on a lot of professional athletes. And you put on this headset, it looks ridiculous, and then you do some games and simulations to see how much you can stay focused on something. I'm terrible at it. I think that any idle second that people have, they're just pulling out their phone or going to their computer or something, and they don't actually stop to think about a lot of things. It's just constantly go, go, go. So how do you slow down to hurry up a little bit? And so this can help retrain your brain to do that.
Generally speaking, can you just talk about how you feel learning is going to be changed with technology and globalization as such a focus in industry today? What are some of the things that you're thinking that we're going to see?
Yeah, so definitely mobile. Anybody walking down the street, any free second they have is pulling out their phone, like I mentioned. So how do you make resources available for people on the go and just when people need it? So if I'm a salesperson and I'm going to a meeting, how do I pull up some content that for one of our products on the way so I can just do a quick refresher? If I'm having a challenge, like I'm about to have a real tough conversation with one of my employees, how can I just pull something up, maybe watch a video or one sheet that can give me some ideas on how to handle that a little bit differently. I think mobile is going to be huge, but we haven't figured it out yet.
And what about video?
Video is great. I think absolutely. We have a YouTube library, a lot of homegrown things that we've created, and it's super engaging, but it has to be short. It has to be hyper relevant to the team that you're working with, or it's just too long and boring. In terms of exciting technologies, honestly, we just really try to create more conversations with our team. What we find as we've grown, like walls get built up, and we need to break those walls down and discuss challenges like real people again.
And in a world where change is now constantly happening and organizations really need to stay on top of change in order to stay competitive, how do you think leaders can really influence change and drive them forward?
I think getting people bought into the why, like Simon Sinek says, right? Getting people bought into the why, over-communicating, and doing things quickly, right? Versus stewing on ideas for too long. If one thing's not working, just alter it and try it a different way. But really just keep on trying until everybody's like bought in. And just being clear to everybody about what the change is and what's going on, because ambiguity just creates confusion and swirl, and you don't want that.
Okay, we want to get your thoughts on how you've built a learning organization at BuzzFeed. So start off by defining what a learning organization is to you.
Sure, I think it's an organization that's not afraid to try new things, an organization that is constantly is very curious, if they're curious with the marketplace, what's happening with the consumer, and then it's built in informally as well. So it doesn't have to be a required course. We don't use required anything because it just gives you a bad taste in your mouth immediately. And so it's much more organic, much more authentic. And whether it's a program run by us or the informal learning that's happening out on the floor, it's all for the sake of improvement.
How important is informal learning in an organization versus the more formal? We're
Really
hearing
important.
a lot more about
really
it.
important. And enabling people to teach each other how to do their job is the most important thing versus sitting in some class and doing technical training for 3 weeks. You're always going to learn more from your peers than you will from a training professional. And so we use a lot of subject matter experts in our sessions as well, and they co-facilitate versus us having to be the experts on everything.
Do you find measurement more challenging when it comes to informal learning? How do you go ahead and measure how much learning has actually taken place when it's informal?
The thing about measurement with training and development, there has to be a certain degree of blind faith from leadership. If they're hoping for numbers on everything, it's going to be an uphill battle. But the stories that we can tell from the anecdotal feedback that we're getting is really helping drive our programs. And in terms of the informal learning, it is a bit harder to measure, but the teams that have managers that are coaching their people and that say that my manager helped me in my first 6 months versus the teams that don't, it's night and day.
From a high level, tell us about what your current learning goals are for the organization.
I want to make the talent at BuzzFeed the best in the industry. And whether they're just out of college or they've been in the market for 20 years, I don't want them to leave BuzzFeed the same as they were before coming in. I want them to be markedly improved in terms of their career goals and in terms of their professional development, whether that's presentation skills or just being a manager or just being an engineer, whatever that is.
Tell us about some of the behaviors that you promote in order to build a learning organization.
Certain behaviors, I guess, would be we have hack weeks. Like I mentioned, it's very organic. So we have the new hire buddy program that everybody gets hooked into when they join. Just creating those communities. We have manager meetups. It's not formal training. Get managers in a room, we talk about one thing, whether it's influence or delegation or feedback. Just creating those small communities is very useful.
Do you have some sort of matrix model or anything that you use to get learning goals in line for all your various departments, or how does it work?
Sure, so it varies by department. We don't have very rigid competency models. It is very much a choose your own adventure in some ways. You know, the ladder of old is now more of a checkerboard where people can bounce around and pick and choose the skills that they need to learn and grow. However, there are certain things that senior leadership expects of their teams, and we work with them to make sure that they are developing on those paths.
And what resources do you need to build a learning organization?
Scrappy people. I think in terms of a learning and development team, teammates that are open and willing to do it all. In my first week, I was putting OMG stickers on Swedish fish packages, you know, and some people might have too big of an ego to do something like that, but it's about staying true to learning and development and staying real. So from the team, definitely you need people that are willing to do it all, and then leadership buy-in. You need that blind faith that just say, go, do what you need to do, try a lot of things, and then the organization really responds well to that.
How do you develop learning plans for individuals, teams, and then for the organization as a whole?
For our management team, they go through our Big Shift program, they go to a BFF to Boss. We have these electives that they are strongly recommended to go to. And we do those across the organization or virtually if we need to. And so from a learning plan perspective, like I mentioned, it's a little bit more of a choose your own adventure. There are certain things that are required for you to take for your team in terms of client service training and presentation training, compliance training, things like that. But for the most part, we create so many electives for people that they can pick and choose from all of those. It's a little bit like university.
Can you talk a little bit about some of those programs that you had just mentioned?
Sure. So presentation skills is something that I'll facilitate or somebody on my team facilitates. We also have guest lectures in. The amazing Dr. Tannenbaum from Brown University comes in and gives a 3-hour lecture. It's the only 3-hour thing we do, and people love it. Time management continues to be our most popular course because it is a very dynamic environment at BuzzFeed. And so helping people prioritize and stay focused is a challenge. And so we work really hard with them on that.
What types of learning methods are you using, and what have you found to be most effective?
It's a blended approach, and we skew a little bit towards the instructor-led, but as we've grown, it's becoming much more one-pagers, new hire portal that we just created, content on demand. We've built out our YouTube library now to have over 20-something videos on there. Short snippets, nothing too long, 2-3 minute videos on specific things that people could just pull up as they need to.
Do you find that generationally people learn differently? So there might be, the millennials who might prefer a certain way or a certain method of learning versus some of the more seasoned people in the organization. Do you find that there is a difference, or?
You know what? In my experience, I find that it all comes down to the person. I don't like to group people together like millennials. I find that within millennials, you have some people that love learning, some people that are set in their ways already, and then with people that are more tenured, you have people that show up to everything, and then some people that show up for nothing. And so I think it's very much an individual case-by-case thing.
How do you motivate learners to learn?
I don't want to say that I don't motivate them, but I would much rather have a group of 5 people that really want to be there than 50 that don't. And so it's word-of-mouth marketing as well. If you create good programs, they tell their peers, and then they'll want to come as well. But it never works when I'm just the only one saying, come to this great program.
So you really look for people who are already internally sort of motivated to do their work.
Yeah, we have these learning liaisons and champions across the world that help motivate their teams to register and attend for things as well. And then, of course, like if your manager is engaged and wants you to grow and is committed to your development, they might give you a little nudge to go to these sessions as well.
What qualities do you look for when you're hiring talent?
There's the technical aspect of somebody's experience, and then the performance aspect. Going back to that, you can't coach character, but you can coach skills. It's much easier. We also look for a diverse pool of people. It is, for us, a competitive advantage. And we, not just in gender or age or race, just in their background and maybe even their hobbies and their passions, to create different points of view and experiences.
We want to get your thoughts on the skills gap issue that's facing organizations today. Do you believe there's a skills gap issue in the technology sector?
Going back to my last response, I think it's more of a diversity gap. I think that we can do a better job early on in education to help people understand the different paths that there are available to them. When I was growing up in school, I had no idea there was a learning and development function. Some people think that engineers can only look like me, right? But organizations and programs like Girls Who Code and others are doing a great job of debunking those stereotypes. And so that is, I think, going to contribute to lesser of a skill gap.
Why do you think these skill gaps exist?
I think, again, it's just early on, with childhood education, helping people become more aware of the paths that they can take is something that's going to be crucial for the leaders of tomorrow and the coworkers of tomorrow. Just helping people understand that. Because if you ask most people, even the people that I work with might say, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, right? And so helping them understand that it isn't just, you don't have to pick the one job for the rest of your career, that it's very much a progression.
Do you find that you have difficulties in filling technology positions at BuzzFeed?
We have a pretty nice pipeline of talent to select from. I think it's one of the benefits of a hyper-growth company. We're doing interesting things, and that makes it attractive. But again, we are always looking for diverse pools of talent as well versus just looking from one place.
So how can we do that? How can the education system improve to help address some of these things?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm fully qualified to answer that, but I think it's just creating more awareness of the different opportunities that are available. Having more guest speakers and having more field trips. We always welcome people into BuzzFeed to see all the different kinds of things that are available to them.
Tell us what you say has made you successful.
Just trying lots of things. You know, and my first job out of college was in a deli. And then I sold things door to door. And sometimes you can look at that and say, oh, that's kind of an aimless path. But I learned something in every one of those stops along the way that I use in my daily life. I feel that everybody is brought into your life for a reason, and trying to learn something from them has been incredibly valuable to me.
What would you say are some of the most proudest moments of your life on the job?
It's those little snippets that you get. You know, I helped somebody in the UK with presentation skills recently, and she has dyslexia, and so it was a little bit tougher for her. She recently presented at a conference, and the people there said, we all want to work at BuzzFeed now, you're amazing. And seeing that growth is just the most rewarding thing in the world professionally. I think personally, I have 2 small boys, and just everything that they do, I'm just so appreciative of. And it's just makes you a proud dad every day.
How did mentors play a role in shaping your life and your career decisions?
Yeah, they're invaluable. You know, they come and go. And as any mentorship, as any mentor does, my wife is an amazing career coach. I will give her, hopefully I get some points for that. But I think the training partners that I've worked with, I've always learned something from them, always being open to networking opportunities. I consider myself a bit of an ambivert, so sometimes those networking things make me cringe, but you gotta get out there, you gotta meet people, because again, you never know what you'll learn from somebody.
What advice do you have for people who are just starting out in the learning industry?
Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. You know, I think the best trainers and leaders that I've worked with have kind of done it all and started, just got their foot in the door somewhere and tried things. Check your ego at the door. Don't be afraid to design everything yourself, do needs analysis, measure, never stop facilitating, never forget why you got into it.
Tell us what makes a great salesperson and some of the qualities make a great salesperson.
I think a lot of sellers in general, pardon my language, but show up and throw up everything about their company. The best ones listen and understand the needs of the clients and are just willing to learn as well. And they're very curious, trying to learn from the peers, always following the ones that are doing a great job. But overall, it's just being very consultative and understanding what are the clients' non-obvious issues that they can help them solve. So they're not just a vendor, but become a trusted advisor.
Do you think leadership can be taught, or are leaders born?
I'm sure there are leaders that are born. I think that most things are taught. But you have to be extremely open. You have to want to change, or there's no hope.
And how do you manage differently in times of crisis?
I think it's dialing down the emotional element a little bit and thinking more rationally what needs to happen immediately to get things going. And it's keeping keeping your team calm, helping them understand the context is invaluable.
Okay, great. Well, Regis, thank you so much for joining us
today.
Thank
you.
This was
Pleasure.
great. Thanks. And we'll see you next time on SarderTV.